Welcome back to Addiction, Alcoholism, and the Three Principles. Once again, my name is Gregsuchy, and I'm back with Harry Durbitsky. Today, we are talking about a topic that has come up a little bit lately as far as people I've been talking to who are part of Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're interested in the three principles and this approach to recovery. And one of the things that keeps coming up is this recovery tool that AA uses called HALT, and it stands for hungry, angry, lonely, tired. And the idea behind it is it's supposed to be a relapse prevention tool. So the idea is if you're feeling hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, you should halt. You should stop. Don't make any big decisions. Don't don't jump into anything. Take time to kind of relax and heal yourself a little bit before you move forward. And like I said, for people in AA's program, it's used as a relapse prevention tool. But I wanted to cover it here as far as like a three principles viewpoint is. And what this is if you are hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, those are four things that are very likely to skew your perception and to kind of throw your thinking off center, off where you would normally be. And I know we can all agree that when you're tired, you're not always in the best of moods and you're not always thinking straight. But we don't usually think about that with being lonely, or if we've been upset about something, or even if we're a little hungry. I mean, we do kind of think about that, I guess, because people talk about being hangry. And you got the Snickers commercials, with people getting upset. Here, have a Snickers. But the importance of this is to realize that our perception, we always talk about this in the three principles, it's our perception, it's our thinking that's creating our experience of the world around us. So if our thinking is skewed at all because of some kind of influence on our bodies or on our emotional state, that's just not a good time to really confront things and I guess, like I said, make major decisions. It's a time to step back and take care of whatever got in the way. So, get some sleep, get some rest, get some food, reach out to people if you're feeling lonely. If you're angry, talk it out with somebody that you trust, and, kind of let yourself heal from that. Harry has something he'd like to say too. So.
Yeah. Well, loneliness especially has been on my radar because a few years ago, I met a psychologist at the swimming pool, and he said that at Christmas time, that's when he's the busiest. He works at a government facility type thing where people come in. And he says the number one problem that people come in with is loneliness. I says, oh, you're kidding. He says this, and it drives people crazy, and that's when their emotional negative habitual patterns, or whatever we want to call it, just those low spaces and depression and so on come from it. It comes from, in their interpretation, of the fact that they're lonely. And Christmas is a time when we all come together as family, and there's abundance and there's food and all this type of stuff. But there's a whole bunch of people who are lonely. And it turns out, I was watching a show the other day, Greg, it turns out that the psychology world, or the news world, is now reporting, it always used to be about stress. Now, almost the number one topic is loneliness and how you can deal with loneliness. So people have become aware that they are not functioning in with the normal support system that you have with a family or community feeling type of thing. And hi.
Well, hello.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
Say hi to everybody.
Hi.
Nice to see you. My grandson, Alder. And,
hi, Alder.
get a little thing in your nose here. I'll take it out. Yeah, he's 2, and my other grandson is 5, who I'm taking care of. So, and this is a really good example of lack of loneliness. You're here, and you get this big high, and that you feel like, oh, so you already feel connected to the universe with a spiritual feeling of love, and so on. And one of the things that they were talking on the show, Greg, was the social media, where people are now just interrelating. Most of their interactions are done via the computer, and that they're not actually meeting people, even type of thing. And so there's this sense of loneliness. Now, the trick with loneliness is it's just a thought. It really is just a thought. It's the same trick as with addiction. You go and watch your show for a little while, and when Zeta's finished talking to these 2 nice guys, I'll have a candy and some treats for you. I brought from them, Gavin, I brought a bunch of Mexican candies type of thing. Just a sec, let me close the door here. Okay, you close the doors, pal. Yeah. You can get a door closer. So you have this sense. Now, one of the things, I just came back from Mexico, Greg, and so I was in an environment where I was the only person speaking English except for 1 or 2 people. So everybody only spoke Spanish. And also I had an apartment with a nice view and everything. But I was like, I had to deal with this quiet. And I actually really loved it, because this mind of mine was enjoying what you have. So the loneliness is actually means your mind is too speedy. And the too speedy automatically connects to where you're weak. And loneliness, by today's standards, is something very easy to get trapped in. So that HALT that you're talking about is it's not as clean as change thought, but it's very similar to you're heading, and that's relapse territory, which we all know is not the best territory to be in. And you change thought and you change your destiny. In this case, HALT. And so you have more, it's still a level of it's, I guess you'd call it like a metaphor, where there's something that you hold on to in periods that you're up. But being alone is a lot different than being lonely. When you're alone and you're happy and content within yourself, you just naturally sleep more. You just naturally let things happen, and you don't push things. When you're feeling lonely, you're running after something, type of thing. And the other ones you mentioned, I had a little insight this when I came back, Greg. My fault. Yes, pal?
Yes.
Okay. Excuse me, guys. I have to open this lolly. This is an important project. You can't wait any longer. And it's a big lollipop from Mexico.
All right.
Oh, look at that. A winner. There you go. Can you close the door, please? That was an emergency. See you later.
Looks like it.
Yeah. So this my fault, Gavin, is eating. I like to overeat, and I like to eat snacks and stuff like that, and really get into it. And I made a mistake. I was on holiday mood, so I went shopping, and I got things like cheesecake and chocolates and eggnog and a whole bunch of treats, just tons of treats. Then I says, "Oh my God, I don't want to eat all that stuff. I want to slim out. I don't." And at that moment, I had an insight, Greg. And the insight was, it wasn't the treats that were driving it. It was my thought about the treats. I had never seen that. I had always been controlled by, oh, and once the treats are there, I got to eat them, you know. And my
Quickly.
daughter,
You have to eat them quickly too.
quickly.
And
My
that was
daughter
something that hit me not that long ago about the eating thing, was that the real enjoyment in eating is in the chewing. Once it's in your stomach, you don't taste it anymore.
Yeah.
And it caused me
And
to slow down, and I actually ended up eating less, and I've just been kind of gradually losing weight just
that's
because of
right.
that, you know.
So the trick is to see that it isn't actually the objects that are tempting you, it's your thought about your habitual pattern about that stuff. My daughter, what she does is she won't allow any treats in the house because she eats healthy. No. She doesn't trust herself. She just, and I thought, oh, I can't do that. But actually, this is like an inner discipline. Your consciousness becomes aware, and then you can, it's great having treats in the house as long as you don't eat them all continuously. You just eat them when you feel like it. Then they're a treat. The other way, they're a stomach ache.
And a belly.
And a belly. So even though we're talking with HALT, what are the four again, Greg?
Hungry, angry, lonely, and tired.
So that was hungry, and then and lonely, and tired is obviously
take a nap. Get some sleep. There are physical things to do about some of this. If you're hungry, eat some food. Try to eat the healthiest food you can get access to, so that you're giving your body nutrition as well as food, and obviously tired, take a nap, go to sleep, get to bed earlier, drink less caffeine so that you're able to actually sleep when you do lay down.
Let me deal with that one for a second. When I was in Mexico, because I'm on holiday and stuff, I and the heat really knocked me on my bum. Really, I got tired, and my first inclination. Now listen to this, Gavin. This is how thought works. My first inclination was, I can't rest. I'm on a holiday. I have to do something productive and that I like. And then all of a sudden, I said, well, why don't I just make this trip a lot about resting? And I started to rest. And of course, what happened was my body found a more natural level with the sun, with everything that's happening in the moment. So being tired, the negative of being tired is you still think you have to drive yourself to do something. And in reality, what Greg is saying is take a nap.
Yeah,
and that's pretty
well, it's just like there were quite a few times for our webinars that I was having issues with my computer because the memory was full and things were happening, and it took a cleansing of the computer to get it to work right. So we do have a physical operating system here. We have this computer in here. Thought is not contained in there. Thought flows through it, but it's still processed through this computer. And if we're not giving the computer what it needs, if it's not getting enough rest or nutrition or whatnot, or interaction with other people, which is actually important, that exchange of energy between people, which doesn't happen as much nowadays because people spend more of their time on social media rather than face-to-face interactions. So you're getting a text message instead of a hug. Those are two very different things. There's no feeling to a text message except for what you create about it. There's a feeling to a hug. You can't help but feel better when somebody who cares about you comes up and gives you a hug. So
like Alder comes in and asks me about,
you lit up when he came in the room.
Yeah, absolutely, and felt it. It was like my heart sang out. Woo, it's really beautiful. And one of the things that I'm seeing with loneliness is that, because I've had a few clients who are living what we call quite isolated lives. And one of the things that I noticed with them is that their own opinions are very strong. They have very strong opinions because they're not getting that, other people input and stuff like. So they're actually more opinionated when you're lonely than when you're socially in community or socially involved in a natural hub of life. And the other thing with loneliness is I noticed was they didn't have a partner. And that can sometimes lead to a feeling of inadequacy or a feeling of missing out. You're not missing out. All that's happened is it's a different chapter of your life. You haven't missed out on anything. Who knows what tomorrow is going to bring anyway? But the power of their opinions was amazing, right? They really believed in their opinions because they've been spending a lot of time in their own opinions and stuff like that. And that became kind of like their inability to flow with anything outside of that. So one of the negative repercussions of loneliness and anger and all this type of stuff is you get a little bit insulated with my opinion. And as Greg and I have noted, as we've grown, we become less opinionated. We become softer in accepting other factors that are happening in our life. And in reality, that's what Sid was talking about, accepting beyond your intellect, beyond what you see. And loneliness, you can see, is like idleness. You've got the blinkers on and you can't see beyond, those areas. There's nothing wrong with being alone. The loneliness is a personal interpretation of your thought, and you've reached a point of looking at it not at the thought level, but at the problem level. And the problem level is always you're seeing personally. And the spiritual level is you're feeling connected to the universe, which is what Greg says is the cause of addiction, the separation from feeling one with the universe, or in his own words, a little different, but exactly that metaphor. So loneliness becoming a bigger and bigger problem, couples separating, bigger problem, people's opinions not being able to see that other people have different point of view. I had went to my Mexican dentist, beautiful guy. And the first thing he told me about Mexican people, he said, is we're a different people. And I love that. Different than the way the Americans see or the way the British see, we're different people. And he said, we have a tendency, when we look north, we see it cold. Like when you look up north, we have a saying in Mexico, when you look up north towards the States or and when you look down south, warmth and the sun and stuff. And that's how we feel about life, type of thing. So you lose that sun and you get caught up in that serious attitude that you know what you're talking about. Greg and I will tell you personally, that ain't the way. That's not true. We don't know what we're talking about, but we know how to enjoy the mystery that is unveiled to us. And that unveiling of the mystery becomes more and more beautiful, more and more whole, and more surprising. And that is what you want. The answer to loneliness, more surprise in your life. Gavin, do you have anything to say about this? I know you don't like to talk too much, but maybe you could interject a thought or two. That would be kind of cool. No, you still have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, it won't let me unmute.
Okay, there we go.
Oh, with what you were saying, am I unmuted now? All right.
No, you're good. You're good.
You know, I was agreeing with what you were, most of what you were saying, because I'm on my own most of the time, and I'm not interacting an awful lot with other people, especially with three principles talk, and I can see that I can get quite insulated. I don't know about opinionated. I suppose that's possible, but I don't know. I'm just not so. I'm just bleeding cold at the minute. I don't know if I can talk when I'm cold. Oh,
Well, how do you relate to the loneliness that you express? How do you see that?
I don't know if I would say I'm lonely. You know, I don't know if I feel lonely. I feel okay in my own space. So loneliness from that aspect doesn't. I wouldn't be holding my hand up to say I'm lonely particularly. I'm on my own with a parrot, but I wouldn't think of myself as being lonely as such.
Beautiful.
So, you know, I'm happy. I'm happy with my own company, as it were, and the bird.
That's a beautiful place to be.
Yeah, no, it was just some of the things you were saying about it seemed to be true from my experience, and I don't know. I suppose it's a possibility that I would get opinionated because I haven't got anybody necessary to talk stuff out with. But it's quite possible that I am opinionated, right? Because I'm not talking to anyone. Wants to come up.
Well, we're all opinionated. It's just how firmly we hold on to those opinions. I have an opinion about everything that exists, even the things that I've never seen, that I don't even know exist. Guess what? I probably have an opinion about them. But when I come across somebody with an opposing opinion or even just a slightly different opinion, I'm open to the fact that everything could be right and everything could be wrong. That just because I have an idea in my head does not make it correct, even if it agrees with the vast majority of people. It still doesn't make it correct. It just makes it generally accepted. You know, so I'm what has changed for me with this understanding is that I've become much more open to trying to understand other points of view rather than just saying I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
And it's really opened up a whole new world to me.
That's right. That's
a lot
what
of new experiences. And
That's
guess what
what
new
we're
experiences do? They stave off loneliness and anger, and I don't feel tired when I'm all energetic. And then when I'm done with these new experiences, guess what? I just go right to sleep. Because there isn't all that stress and anxiety behind it, because I'm not trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong. I'm just going with the flow of what is. What if there is no right and wrong? What if there's just your version and my version? What if we're all wrong? What if we're all right? Who knows? None of us can know for sure. But what I do know is that building a genuine connection with other human beings is the bright spot in my life. That I do know. But like you said, Gavin, I am just as content being alone. Especially, you know, going out in nature and going for hikes and going kayaking and stuff like that. I love getting out alone too, just as much as I love being around other people.
And you'll probably find, Gavin, that say something happens where you're you become more active in certain ways, you'll still want to be alone a lot because it's who you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. And that's what I found in Mexico. I was alone a lot, but I actually got to really like it. So I can see that I like being alone. There's nothing wrong with enjoying your own company. In fact, I've stated on this show, Gavin, that the way that the rule that indigenous people use to see if you're wise, you know what it is, Gavin? Being able to stand your own company and be alone with your own thoughts, type of thing. So if you're enjoying being alone and so on, we're really, that's what it's about. But what happens is when I go out and things happen, I always come back to, I want it to be peaceful and quiet with myself. I always come back to that. You know, it's nice to have stimulation and all this stuff, but to enjoy your own company is very, very cool. And to be satisfied. Succulent.
Succulent.
It's succulent. And so I'm embracing that feeling that you're talking about. That is good, to enjoy who you are and your own company and so on. And no matter what happens, you'll always carry that with you. It's a lot better than being discontent. You can see that, can't you? If you're discontent with your own company and you go out, all you're going to do is attract more discontent. But if you're content and you go out, all you're going to attract is content. And anything that's too noisy and too stuff, you just walk away. And that's what I did in Mexico. The last night I went, I said, I wonder what the nightlife is like in Mazatlan. So I went, after having an incredible time in a special thing, I drove to this nightclub and I walked to the door and I said, nope, not for me. Goodbye, and zipped on back to what I was comfortable with. So that's what happens. But what Greg is talking about has a succulence, to use that word. These features. Oh man, it's like, it's not a pipe dream to have a beautiful life. It's real.
It's already beautiful. We've just
is
lost
already
sight of the beauty. It's
exactly.
about putting on a new pair of glasses. That's actually another thing I actually still believe has a lot of validity from the things that I learned in AA. There was a guy fairly early on in the years of AA, Chuck Chamberlain, and he wrote a book and did talks about what he called a new pair of glasses. He was talking about changing your perception to change your life. And that's absolutely 100% true. I mean, if you literally take your glasses, Harry, and flip them around the other way, you're going to see totally differently than what you see now.
Yeah, I see nothing. Oh no, there you are.
Everything's all blurry because you got their prescriptions wrong. But a lot of people are walking around through life with their glasses flipped backwards. They're walking around like that, and they think that it's the truth, that what they're seeing is something they're seeing with clarity. But then when the day comes when those glasses finally get flipped in the right direction and you see what's really there, you can't help but change. You can't help but have a totally new experience of life and everything within it. Nothing changed, but everything's different.
That's the mystery. You see nothing changed, and yet everything changed. It's the only thing that changed is the perception. There was a lady that I met in Stone Island where I was, and she was seeing everything terrible what was happening to her. And then we spent a little bit of time, and then all of a sudden, all this good luck started happening. We met again for coffee, and she was just loving being in Mexico. And I said, the trick is when you wake up in the morning, if you have a good mindset, the rest of it will take care of itself. Wake up in the morning, and you can have a lot of bitching and complaining. You're going to have to struggle a little bit with it. And when I first met her, she was struggling. And just this little change, small little change. And now her mindset was, wow, this is a cool place. She's meeting people. And in her mind, I might have met a guy, have a little fun, type of stuff. And so all of that is magical. What we do to handle anger and HALT, hungry and
Hungry, angry, lonely, and
tired type of thing is that. You understand that, Gavin, what that means?
What?
Just what I did. That's all you do. You see this? That's all you do. You just hang out with whatever. Don't interfere. And natural. Oh. And then it gets easy. Because hard, the opposite of hard, which is overthinking, is easy. Easy is lack of overthinking. Overthinking, easy. Which one do you want? You've done a lot of the overthinking. Maybe you could try a little of the other one. And that's kind of the psychological answer to HALT. Overthinking, underthinking.
Where did this come from?
Hmm?
Where did this HALT come from?
Go ahead, Greg.
I don't know the exact origin, but it became a part of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's one of their tools for prevention of relapse. But I don't know if it originated in AA or if it came from somewhere else and they adopted it. You know what I mean?
I've never heard of it before you mentioning it.
And it could be a regional thing too. It could be just something around where I'm at. But I know they have a lot of literature about it. So it seems like it's a little bigger than just local stuff.
Right.
But I just thought it was interesting because it's something I'm trying. A lot of people seem to think that we are anti-Alcoholics Anonymous and anti-other approaches, and we're not. There's a truth to everything that's out there, and and AA started very similarly to this three principles movement. Bill Wilson had an enlightenment experience, and he tried to share that with everybody that he could. And that's where it started from. Where it's continued from there is in my experience, a different direction. But it started in a really beautiful place.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of truth to it when you get to the core of AA and how it got started. There's really a lot of beauty and truth to it. And that's why there were a lot more people recovering with it in the beginning. They boasted over 80% success rates toward the beginning. That's pretty incredible. And that's, I do believe a lot of that had to do with Bill Wilson's leadership within the program. And as the program grew and he had less of an influence on what was going on, things started going in different directions because you had other people who had their ideas of how to run things. Just like we have within the three principles movement. There's lots of people out there who've got their own ideas of how to do the three principles or how to talk about the three principles or how to share it. The fact of the matter is, you go back to what Sid said, you share from what you know. It's really that simple. We need to stop overcomplicating this stuff. Nobody needs a training program to learn how to share the principles. You've either experienced it or you haven't. And if you have, you share what you've experienced. If you haven't, you learn from people who've experienced it. And you try to have your own personal experience of it. That's really what the true answer is to all of our problems, is that experience of ourselves, that experience of our true essence, of our core. which is something that exists way before thought.
And Gavin, AA they're quite obsessed with ego thinking. Really like that's kind of the level they address thought, is that ego thinking, and becoming, and so they start paying a lot of attention to the destructive nature of ego thinking, which is different than original thought. But the reason I think HALT came is because they concentrate on the ego aspect of our thinking. And so they're saying, if you don't hunger, if you don't overindulge into these negative HALT, anger, loneliness, tiredness experiences, you're going to have a nicer life. Well, that is true, absolutely true. If you stop, you halt in your thinking of that I'm very, very lonely, it is going to be productive. It's a lot better than indulging into I'm really lonely and I'm really caught up into this thing and all this type of stuff, where it's a spiral that continues. So I could see where it came from. Like when Greg was talking, it just appeared. I said, right, because they are so obsessed with ego thinking. What three principles is obsessed with is pure thought, and the fact that you're a thinker, not the contents of the thinking, but that you're a thinker. And within that, the purity of the principles is the purity of original thought, and what Greg was alluding to before all of that stuff happened, type of thing. So
yeah, so the three principles viewpoint on HALT would basically be that any one of those four things is involving overthinking. And HALT, to stop when you're overthinking, to stop and try to take an honest assessment of what's actually going on, which could mean just sitting for a little bit. Just take a few breaths and just relax and remove yourself from that situation for a moment, so that so that the ego thoughts aren't constantly trying to push against it. If you're angry at somebody, don't sit around them for a little bit. I mean, it's really simple, it's basic, but what do a lot of people tend to do? And I've been guilty of this myself, but way more times than I'd like to admit. If I'm angry at somebody, then I tend to keep going after them and trying to persuade them that I'm the correct one. That never gets me anywhere. It never gets them anywhere. It never accomplishes anything. It just causes more anger, more resentment, and more ego. Yeah. It's like you watch those videos of like the mountain goats and stuff butting heads, and you could tell it hurts. It hurts both of them very badly. And yet they continue doing it because that's all they know. That's their way of living. We are a little different. We're not based on, human beings aren't based on just simple survival anymore. We have a much more complex society. And that's why we have the luxury of looking at things like ego and stuff like that. We're not so concerned about having to almost kill ourselves to get a mate. I mean, it's pretty incredible. If you've never seen one of those videos, I definitely recommend watching something like that. These animals are going through some really seriously traumatic experiences just for that opportunity. Be glad that we don't have to. We do it to ourselves mentally. We're headbutting walls and everything all day long. So many of us just go through the day just headbutting everything in our path. And yet it never accomplishes anything except causing more pain and suffering.
It's just a spiral, a negative pattern that gets stronger and stronger. Form develops, and then it starts to feel normal. I had a really interesting thing, and it brought up when you were talking, Greg. I was in my apartment, in my bedroom, and I was feeling really lethargic and tired. And I had a sense that it wasn't right to just lay there. It wasn't really help. And I said, oh, why don't I, and this took effort, why don't I jump in my car? And 5 minutes away is this beautiful botanical gardens. I drove there, walked in the gate, found a place in front of the lagoon and sat there and spent the afternoon there because I was tired. I needed a very easy time, but it was so much more constructive than just sitting in my head, lying on bed. And I thought, gee, that is really the essence of the principles. You're here, it doesn't feel quite right, and you just simply move there, and it feels right, and you have a beautiful time. That's psychological innocence at its purest level, Gavin. So I felt extremely privileged to have that experience because I know in the past I would have just sat in the bed. I just know that. And so we start through consciousness, Gavin, we start to become aware of what is healthy for us. Not only are we peaceful, but what is healthy for us? What do we need to make us feel proud of what we're living? Self-esteem.
More likes on Facebook, obviously. More likes on Facebook, obviously.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, type of thing. And even that is quite a you do like it. You do like it. We
you
like
do, but in the end, what's it actually helping?
Well, it's helping Facebook get more money.
It's feeding your ego. Oh, look,
Well,
I got 100 likes on that one. But that's where a lot of people use those types of tools in ways that are not so useful.
Excuse me, I misinterpreted.
We were talking the social media with the loneliness and everything. Yeah, you got 100 likes on your post and you feel kind of good about that for a minute, but you never actually made a connection with anybody. You know what I mean? So it's 100% ego driven. And it's important to get out. It's not that they are tools. Facebook is a tool. Twitter is a tool. All these things are tools. And how we use them is what determines our experience of them. I use Facebook to connect with people. Real connections, not get a like from them, but to connect with people. And it's really a pretty amazing thing to meet with somebody face to face who you've never met before and to have a genuine, heartfelt conversation with them. And to be able to leave that conversation with a hug and feeling love for each other. Even if we never see each other again, our lives are just changed permanently because of that interaction, because of that connection. We can never be the same. And that is something you cannot get from likes. It's not something you can get from followers on Twitter or whatever, I honestly don't even know anything about anything but Facebook, but that's how interested I am in social media stuff. But this world today, I truly believe that, aside from the overthinking and stuff, the vast majority of the problems are caused by people not being connected, by people feeling like we can't have a conversation with somebody we don't know because we don't know how they'll react to it. Will they get offended by our viewpoint? And as much as I'm all for not doing things that are harmful to other people, I don't believe it needs to be laws. People either feel it in their hearts to not be harmful toward other people or they don't. Making it a law just creates more separation. Because now you've got the people who are against the law and for the law. So you've created this separation in between, and what we need is more connectedness, more togetherness, and more people sharing their experience of life with each other in a genuine, honest manner, so that we know we're not the only ones going through whatever it is we're going through.
Yeah, and one of the funny what Greg is saying is correct. But Gavin, one of the funniest things about our show is Greg, in February, this will be 3 years Greg and I have been working together. You know how many times we've met each other, Greg, Gavin?
It once.
Never.
Never.
Never. All right.
We've
Not
never
until May.
not
in
until
May.
May at the conference that the three. So Greg and I have developed an outstandingly a great relationship. But not only that, Greg, when we first started, he was talking about how different we have become over the years because of the luck of being on this show and sharing with each other. And we have literally jumped enormous levels of consciousness with this community feeling that Greg and I have captured. And it's been very beneficial to us, but we have never met. And in a funny way, Greg is one of my best friends. Like, I mean it. Like, we know each other in certain ways that I have not shared with anybody else, because we've been working together harmoniously. At first, not so harmoniously, and then like we had differences of opinions and different things. But then at a certain point, we just kind of oozed together. But we have evolved the show, and I would say that was spirit. Spirit has evolved the show, and we have been the benefactors of it in our own personal life. And the truth is, Greg and I love this show. We love it. It's beautiful to us. Yeah. And we've been very proud of what we've created. But I know that every thought that I've had regards to educating the crowd of people in a different way than 3P does didn't come from me. It came from spirit. It all comes from spirit. And so Greg and I have this fantastic good friend relationship, and we've never met. I have to say that is a mystery. Like, it's certainly 5 or 10 years ago, if we would have talked about that, Greg, people would have said that's impossible. But now, here it is. But we have come together as community in a harmonious way, because we have the same basic loving concept. If we do our best and we share, we'll see something mysterious. The mystery is things get better and better and better. And the more they get better, the more we go along with the ride. Kind of like catching a wave in your kayaking. You get the right wave in your kayak, it pulls you along. And to your surprise, it makes a huge difference. That's what Sid was talking about. A huge difference in everyone, everybody, including Greg and Harry, lives. And that's what's happened. Greg was actually openly talking about that before you came on, Gavin, about how that has happened. And do we feel appreciation? Well, it's quite a bit better than we ever imagined. Quite a bit better. It's a beautiful life. And Christmas is coming as we come to the end of this show. We want to wish everybody a beautiful, beautiful Christmas, and thank you for all you've shared over the year. Yeah. I'll put out the new. I have 3 months. We'll put it out after. Let a little bit, and we'll look forward to seeing you guys in the new year, everybody, and continue to share this feeling that. Computer broken. Well, I have to go, guys.
We'll see you all next year. Thank you. It's been an honor, and we'll see you in a few weeks. Take care, everybody.
Okay, I have a job to do. See you guys.
All right, see you.